When I was modeling, it was a very intense time of everybody experimenting and everybody getting high, and the adults that were taking care of you and chaperoning you were the ones that were supplying.
She had the face of an angel and a needle in her arm before her 15th birthday. Jaime King was fashion's golden girl, walking for Chanel, shooting with Vogue. But behind the glamour was a child spiraling through addiction, trauma, and survival. This is how a supermodel's rise became a crash no one saw coming.
Experience, and then there was a cover of Harper's Bazaar, I believe, with, I think it was Naomi and Kate, and it was the Marc Jacobs collection from, when grunge was.
She wasn't born into the spotlight. Jaime King came from Omaha, Nebraska, flatlands, quiet streets, a place where dreams didn't usually wear high heels. Born on April 23, 1979, to a conservative, middle-class family, Jaime was the second of 4 kids. Her mother, Nancy, was a former beauty queen who knew how to hold a smile. Her father, Robert, worked as an electrician, steady, practical, and distant. At home, things looked normal, but underneath, the cracks were already forming. Jaime was shy, a little awkward, and nothing like the confident woman she'd one day pretend to be. Then the divorce came, and it shattered the little structure she had left.
Just kind of spunky.
Is she tough?
Yes. She isn't naive. She's smart enough to keep up with all of this and recognize what's important and what's phony.
The family broke apart. So did Jaime. The happy childhood faded, replaced by confusion, loneliness, and a gnawing need to escape. She didn't run away, not physically, but she started slipping early. By 13, while most kids were thinking about homework and crushes, Jaime was already experimenting with substances, weed, pills, drinking when no one was looking. She hadn't even set foot on a runway yet, and the damage had already started.
Jimmy, should Angelina help the Alpha Mom with some money for the kids? Because that's what she's going to be doing.
She's got a bunch of kids on her own.
She was just 14 when it happened. A scout spotted her at a local modeling school. Long limbs, icy blue eyes, and that's something you can't teach. It wasn't just beauty, it was a presence. And in the blink of an eye, Jaime King was no longer a girl from Omaha. She was on a one-way ticket to New York City. She signed with company management and stepped into the high-gloss world of fashion with barely a suitcase and no idea what was coming.
For me, it's an opportunity that's something absolutely amazing that many girls my age don't have. A lot of girls in the whole world would wish to be in our places and work with amazing people and amazing designers, and I feel really lucky that I'm doing this.
How old are you now?
I'm 16, I'm 17.
But there was one problem. There was already another Jaime King in the modeling world. So, she changed her name. Not legally, just professionally. James King, a name sharp enough to cut through the noise. By 15, she wasn't just playing dress-up. She was walking for Chanel, working with Alexander McQueen, shooting for Vogue, Elle, Harper's Bazaar. The industry didn't care that she was a teenager. They treated her like she was 25, expected her to act like it too. She was the new it girl, but no one asked if she was ready. They only asked if she was available.
Honestly, my personal style hasn't changed that much. I've always dressed pretty eclectic. I like to mix very classic pieces with vintage pieces, and it kind of changes every day. You know, it's very similar than, that it always has been.
The 90s fashion world wasn't just about couture and camera flashes. It was drowning in drugs, cocaine, heroin, pills passed around like party favors. And Jaime? She wasn't immune. She was 14, still a child, but already hooked on heroin. It didn't happen overnight. It crept in model apartments where supervision was non-existent, backstage at runway shows where exhaustion was masked by white powder and whispered offers.
And for some reason, people think that if you walk around in flip-flops and, ripped jeans, and I have ripped jeans, but if you walk around kind of looking like trash, that they celebrate that, and I'm not into that. But I come from a different school of perspective.
The pressure was relentless. Stay thin, stay relevant, stay awake. There was no room to be tired, no room to be human. So, Jaime used, not to party, to survive. She later admitted it. She was high on set, high at fittings, high in front of the camera. The same magazines that crowned her the face of fashion had no idea she was using drugs just to keep from falling apart. Modeling stopped being a job. It became a performance. and the drugs were her only way to keep the mask on.
At first it was a fantasy, but now it's just a job. You have to be very responsible and you have to know what you're doing at all times. If you're not responsible and if you don't recognize the responsibility that comes with this job, then I think that you don't last as long as the supermodels do, or as the responsible people.
From the catwalk to the underground, Jaime slipped seamlessly into New York's after-hours world. Raves, clubs, hotel room parties that never ended. She wasn't even old enough to drive, but she was deep in a scene built for adults and predators. She was a child in designer heels, surrounded by grown men with agendas, cocaine-lined mirrors, and no one telling her to go home. There was no curfew, no protection, just flashing lights, loud music, and silence when it came to the pain underneath it all.
There was a lot of, smoking cigarettes. There was a lot of being introduced to drugs and things that, from that time in fashion was very, wild.
By the time most kids were heading to prom, Jaime King was deep in a war for her life. She later admitted it herself. She was addicted to heroin until she was 19. Not casually, not occasionally, fully hooked. Every photo shoot, every campaign, every magazine cover, she was high for most of it. She had already overdosed more than once, already brushed up against death. And still, the industry kept calling. As long as she looked good in the pictures, no one asked if she was okay.
And again, it's like adults, so I didn't quite understand, I thought that maybe I'd be protected by them. So I just went with what they were doing because I didn't have, that sort of guidance.
She checked into rehab more than once, but recovery wasn't a straight line. It was relapse, regret, and repeat. She spoke out eventually, told the world how she used heroin at photo shoots, how she floated through ad campaigns, half-conscious. The job slowed. The phone stopped ringing. The it girl became a liability. She lost friends. She lost momentum, and nearly lost her life.
This sucks really bad, It's so funny to me how things sound like a movie, like in retrospect.
Yeah.
But they happen, So I read this book, and it basically in the beginning it said something to the effect of like,
something had to give. Jaime walked away from modeling, quietly, not with a press release or a breakdown, but with exhaustion. She quit, not because she didn't love the work, but because she didn't recognize the girl in the mirror anymore. For the first time, she focused on something other than survival. Getting clean, really clean. She joined Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, surrounded herself with people who didn't care what magazine cover she'd been on. They cared whether she made it to tomorrow. And she didn't hide it. Jaime started speaking publicly about heroin, overdoses, and the pain, not as a scandal, but as truth. She wasn't chasing sympathy. She was reclaiming her life.
Okay, tell me about working on The Spirit.
Oh, it was awesome. It was amazing. Yeah, Frank's one of my dearest friends, and we met on Sin City and became really close. And I just love the whole process of working with him and how much he loves filmmaking and he loves his actors so much.
She didn't go back to fashion. She moved beyond it. In the early 2000s, Jaime stepped in front of the camera again, this time to act. Pearl Harbor, White Chicks, Sin City. Hollywood didn't expect much from a former model. But Jaime wasn't just a face anymore. She had a story, and she brought it with her. She dropped James King. That mask stayed in the past. Now she was simply Jaime, flawed, honest, and fully herself. The world began to see her differently. She opened up about addiction, trauma, and survival. Not for attention, but for truth. She became an advocate, speaking out about abuse, mental health, and the damage fame can hide. In 2007, Jaime married filmmaker Kyle Newman. They had 2 sons, James Knight and Leo Thames. And for a while, life looked calm. She was acting, raising a family, and appearing on red carpets not as a supermodel, but as a survivor. But peace is never simple. Behind the scenes, old wounds lingered, PTSD, addiction, and marriage slowly coming apart. In 2020, she filed for divorce, sparking legal battles, restraining orders, and public scrutiny.
I love this.
It's kind of crazy that you even know that. Because I don't talk about it. Because when you use like words of like in Hollywood or...
Jaime King is still here, still working, still standing. From Chanel runways to heroin at 14, she lived through what should have ended her. Her story isn't just about fame or addiction. It's about surviving a world no child should ever be in. She didn't come out flawless. She came out real. And in her world, that's rare. If Jaime King's story shocked you, like the video, share your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more true stories.